is George York, and I'm from this area, and I don't think this works, but I do. I put it like this, you know, I've been here for like 22 years. I live right back here at 220 Green Street, and I see kids each and every day, and it's a shame if you're gonna have this in this residence. You know, do you really need it? I don't think so. No, we don't need it. I see the future. I hear the future. You know, they have a future already. What about the kids? Do they have a future? What's going to happen to these kids? You know, they want to live. You know, it's going to destroy them. We don't need that. I know they don't need it. You know, and I feel it in my heart. I see these little kids each and every day. The love. You know, we need something like that in these rooms. In these streets. We need good love in here. We need good love in these streets. You know, they will help us, you know, but that stuff that they're going to bring in here, what good is that? Do we definitely need it? Do we need it? I don't think so. So we're going to have to do something else. You know, maybe we could just, what can we do? I don't know, we're just going to have to, it's hard for me to explain because I'm not a good speaker, but I'm just trying to speak from my heart. You know, I'm here for a purpose. You know, I'm here for my heart. You know, it's about the love. You know, I'm here for a purpose. God put me here for a purpose, really. Not just to stand back and look. I have to drop that pride and say, you know what, I'm here for a reason. He put me here for a reason, to give what I have. You know, I'm not the best and I don't want to be the best, but I'm a human being, trying to be human. And I have to stand up, drop the pride, drop all that stuff and be a man. And that's what I am, a man, a worthwhile man. Stand up for myself, you know, and I love it. You know, we don't need that junk. We need something worthwhile. You know, and it's really, man, if I could just get out the words in the right way, I would say it. But it's from the heart. It's from the heart. That's all I have to share with that.
Thank you. Kate Hudson.
Kate Hudson from Riverkeeper.
Can't hear you.
Kate Hudson from Riverkeeper. 2 weeks ago, Governor Cuomo issued an executive order. In that order, he called out, he highlighted the unacceptable risks to hundreds of New York communities vulnerable to a serious accident, and New York's unique waterways, including the Hudson River, Mohawk River, and Lake Champlain, vulnerable to spills of crude oil because of the expanding transport of crude oil by rail and vessel. It is because of the very risks and potential impacts that the government identified in his executive order that we call on DEC to rescind its negative declaration and require global partners to evaluate the potential environmental impacts that our governor has called out. We, Riverkeeper, many other organizations, countless individuals like Pete Seeger have spent the last 45 years and countless millions of dollars to restore the Hudson River to vitality and rid it of PCBs and other industrial contaminants and sewage. This proposal puts the Hudson River at risk again. Because of the potentially catastrophic impacts of granting this permit, permitting a new and hazardous form of crude to move through New York communities and down the Hudson Valley by rail, barge, and ship, this must be subject to a full environmental review. And DEC has the authority and the obligation to rescind its negative declaration and to require the preparation of a full environmental impact statement. Because DEC now knows that there is an environmental justice community that has been put in the crosshairs of potential disaster by Global's application, and which until tonight has been given no information and no opportunity to express their concerns and demand answers. Number two, DEC now knows, which Global has known since last year, but apparently never bothered to mention to DEC, that the City of Albany Planning Board has approval authority over this action. And therefore, DEC must coordinate its review with the City of Albany.
Ms. Hudson, your time is up.
Therefore, the changes in circumstances, the numbers of spills, etc., that we have seen, the riskiness of the cars, all require DEC and give DEC the basis for revisiting their negative declaration and requiring Global to prepare a full environmental review. Thank you.
Mary Finneran.
Hi, my name's Mary Finneran. I'm from Carroll, New York, down in Greene County. I teach at Crooksaki Athens High School. Mr. Gersman introduced this session by saying this is just the beginning of this process. This should be the end of this process. We don't want it. We want the people to be able to say no. We want you here in this neighborhood to be able to say no. Right, behind me, this sign right now, right here. This is danger. It's a warning. I'm speaking for Michelle, Bibi, Willie, and Diane. I told them I hope you approve my words because I said I would speak for you because they didn't choose to speak here. I was fireman I spoke to outside. I asked him how he was, I said, you can't mitigate explosions. He says, oh no, we're just here to clean up. We're just here to put out the fires. We don't want any fires. What does it behoove the people here to have this facility? They are taking the gas from the oil from outside this state. They are boiling it. They are going to send it down the river, and they are going to send it out of this country. What does it behoove these people here to have any of this? It doesn't behoove us. We profit nothing, and we don't want it. It's a crime to poison people. It's considered an act of terrorism to explode communities. We are putting us in risk of this. Further down the river, the crude oil well, one thing, this is heated by natural gas. This steam is heated by natural gas. If one of these train cars explodes, what's going to happen to the pipeline? Somebody said no pipelines, it's carrying the natural gas. I want to stop because I do want to say something. Bibi was carrying a Bible the other day when I first met him, and I met him here again. I want to quote from that. It says, whatsoever you do unto the least of my brethren, you do unto me, and I'm not going to stand for it. Thank you.
Hi, my name is John Chris. I'm here with the Natural Resources Defense Council. Your Honor, the DEC, working with the City of Albany, should commit today to conducting a full environmental review of the permit application before then. But additionally, DEC should commit to conducting a full environmental review of the November 2012 Title V permit that allowed Global to double its throughput through the Port of Albany. And finally, Your Honor, the Governor's executive order, while a good start, should be expanded. The Governor's office should use the full persuasive force of his office to call for a moratorium on the transport of crude oil on the rail lines and the rivers of this state until the risks of that transport are more fully understood. We have reason to be concerned here. You've heard from many speakers, and there are at least 3 good reasons to be very concerned about this activity. First is obviously the risk of the spills and the possibility of a catastrophic accident. A catastrophic accident that is far more dangerous because of the possibility, probably the likelihood, that Global is going to be routing tar sands oil through this facility. Tar sands oil that's essentially impossible to clean up if it spills in our waterways. Second, you've heard over and over again, and that's why most of the people are here, that there is a huge environmental justice issue here, and DEC agrees and believes that DEC should address that immediately. The third, and something that shouldn't be lost in this discussion, is that tar sands oil is an absolute disaster from a climate change perspective. Tar sands oil and the impacts that tar sands oil would have on our climate have so far in this process gone unreviewed and unaddressed. According to both the United States EPA and the State Department, tar sands oil is 81% greater a greenhouse gas than conventional oil. 81%. Your Honor, and DEC if you're listening, to address the concerns of the people here and the concerns of the environmental community, what you need to do is you need to commit immediately to a full environmental review of both this permit and the previous permits that have allowed this huge increase in crude oil. And I would call on the Governor himself to expand upon his executive order and to call for a moratorium in the state of the transport of oil and crude oil on our rails and our barges until the issue is more fully understood. Thank you.
Our next 5 speakers, Amy Allerin, Ray Downs, Susan Lawrence, Betty Head. And our next speaker is Ralph Belfort.
I speak as a resident of Mount Hope, directly above Kentwood Yard. Also as a former employee of the Delaware and Hudson Railway. I can tell you that the number of hazardous tank cars going through Kentwood Yard right now probably represent no more than about a 10% increase over the number of tank cars that have been handled in that yard at various times over the last 40 years. I know because we used to store cars of methanol and methyl chloride for General Electric Company for their silicones plant. We had over 100 cars adjacent to South Pearl Street for a couple of years. And we moved them every day. They were not moved in the unit train, but they were there. Also, the other petroleum handling facility down there, the old Cirillo Brothers, that is back in operation again. That handled 84 cars in unit trains. We have been handling gasoline between Albany and Burlington for 40 years by rail. And the other thing is the rail line between Albany and Schenectady does not carry the crude oil trains. As somebody pointed out, that does go through the CSX line through Voorheesville, down through Selkirk. That comes into the Port of Albany from the south. CP Rail, the D&H line, handles everything to the north. There is nothing going east and west through the city of Albany. The other thing, somebody pointed out the bridge in Voorheesville. One thing about railroad bridges, because railroads are not stupid enough to put salt on their tracks, the bridges do not rust out in a very short period of time. We have bridges in service on the railroad that are well over 100 years old and capable of carrying traffic just the same way they did then as they do today. So that's it. Thank you.
Susan Weber.
Well, I guess we shouldn't worry, huh? Everything's okay? I don't know. I don't think so. My name is Susan Weber. I'm a resident of Albany County. I'm a former attorney, and I'm a member of PAWS, People of Albany United for Safe, Sane, Sustainable Energy. I want to thank everyone for coming tonight and thank the officials who came and who stood up and made this meeting happen. And I want to thank also the staff of DEC, some of whom I actually even know, and for coming and listening to us and for responding to the outcry from the neighborhood. I live also, as some other people have said tonight, within the sound of the railroad tracks and the train whistles. And I think in addition to the concerns we have about the air permit, which I know is the real basis for our being here tonight, and I would also like to comment that Dr. Carpenter's concerns, I echo. I can't speak to them, but I'm very, very concerned about them. I think most of us here today are also concerned about what the railroad workers call the bomb trains. The explosions that have happened and the spills that have occurred have not been at facilities. They have been on the rail lines. And I know that's a transportation issue that is not within the jurisdiction of the department. However, every step we take toward enabling this rail traffic to continue increases the risk of a catastrophic accident. The rail cars, check out the rail cars, they're not up to snuff. Check out the rail lines, neither are they. They have to be made up to snuff. And until then, we should not approve the permit.
Thank you.
I have a background in hazardous materials spills response. I'm also a former chemical worker, worked in chemical plants, And one of the things in a chemical plant, when you're putting a volatile substance in a kettle to apply heat to it, you purge the kettle first with nitrogen to make the vessel inert. What we're doing here is we're taking a tank car and applying heat to it at 120 degrees. This is technically a vessel, but guess what? These tank cars are not pressure rated. They are not designed to do this. So what happens is you begin with the applying of the heat, you start to distill the early stages of distillation within the tank car. You're going to be getting volatile gases building up at the head of the tank car. And again, it's not an inert environment, it's an explosive environment. And you have these manways up at the top of the tank car, you can see them up there, and those have seals in them. Well, guess what? Nobody's taken the time to pressure test this to see if those seals leak. All it takes is a pinhole through those seals. That volatile gas goes through, and a little bit of friction from the escaping gas is enough to cause an ignition. I've seen this actually happen in a chemical plant where a seal leaked. We had an interesting way of dealing with the fire, is sitting there with a valve and hitting the nitrogen, and that usually put out the fire. Well, guess what? There's no nitrogen on these things. There's no way to put out the fire, so guess what? The tank car goes kaboom. Tank cars go kaboom, they go up, they come down, and they're close proximity to other tank cars. Do I need to make the message any clearer? But I've got a friend back here with a nice picture that shows me what happens at the end, right back here. Okay? I would strongly urge the DEC to deny this permit in total, because by allowing these boilers to come into operation and applying the heat, why don't we just strike a match, put it to the fuse, and boom.
Frank Sullivan.
Thank you. I was down at the rail yard about a month ago looking at the tank trains. We took some pictures, and adjacent to a line with oil cars, there was a car with a placard for chlorine on it. I recently read that the evacuation zone for chlorine is 7 miles. So if a tank car does go kaboom up and down, and the chlorine is right there, is anybody looking at that? That's my specific question. And then a comment, you know, there's a lot of issues that we need to get together on. We're doing it tonight. Quite often our issues come from, are profit-driven by large corporations. I think we need to recognize this is just one more example of that, and continue to get together as a community and work on, you know, the innumerable issues we have.
I'm going to call the next group of people to come forward. Leah Golby, Carol Tansey, Sandy Stubing, Scott Kellogg, Aaron Mayer. Our next speaker is Amy Stock.